We might not even be doing it 50% right. But take a breath. We're all going to do what you can do. The only way you're going to fail at this is if you don't do anything. So do what you can do, and don't have unrealistic expectations of your teacher, or stay positive about that, and have grace for your kids. Have a little grace for yourself when you're trying to juggle. I tell my parents, just try to, when someone juggles, they don't throw all 5 things up in the air at once. They throw one up and they get that going, then they throw the next one up, and then they throw the next one up. Just remember the ultimate goal, to educate my kid. I want them to love to learn, and they're going to learn something. And if they don't learn everything, it's not going to kill them, because they're going to get it again, probably in a couple of years. And for working moms, I have a sheet for you. If you could go down, Ocha, that don't compare your homeschool setting with everybody else's. You have your own style. You have your own, keep going a little bit further up, if you don't mind, homeschool for working moms. Take whatever thought you thought it should look like. It may not look like that for you. Homeschooling is flexible. Paula hit on that. Use that flexibility. You can do homeschooling before you go to work, after you go to work, in the evenings, on weekends, on holidays. Remember, kids are always learning. Take advantage of their curiosity and their homey things that you do. If you're cooking, then there's fractions. There's all kind of math in there. If they're out in the garden, you're doing weeding. Hey, there's all kinds of science out there in gardening and the growing of things. Shopping, there's a lot of math. And if you need childcare, consider options like a homeschool team come and helping. Friends or family, elicit them to give you a little hand. Other working moms, trade off with them. A friend, maybe they can hang out with a friend while you work at a friend's house, and then you can work with them when you get home. And take advantage of any stay-at-home moms. Maybe you can teach off with them. So also at the end of the handout is a homeschool sites and resources, just some other things. Yeah, keep going up. You'll see the schedule. Here's an example of an all-day schedule. Yours doesn't have to be this way, but you make a schedule. And then keep going. And there are just some other homeschool sites and resources with links for especially those of you who are independently homeschooling and not having to do a lot of already assigned work. And I'm glad to help and encourage anyone who might need it. And we have a wonderful panel of wonderful, knowledgeable people here, all ready to support you, courageous and loving parents. Kudos to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elvira, for that presentation. Just another reminder to the attendees, please don't hesitate to put out your questions. And I just put out another poll before she started. If you haven't responded, please go ahead and do that so we can capture properly. But we'll be calling on Wendy with her presentation shortly. As she gets ready, let me share with us the current results from the poll. So the first question was, has your school given parents enough information about virtual learning plans for your students or your children? 38% said yes, and amazingly 62% says no, which is scary. So this is very good information that we're getting. You can supplement it with what you've already received, or you can embrace it in its entirety, because if you haven't received anything at all, it's proper guidance. And I want you to, again, keep an open mind as we go through this. The second question on the poll was, which area of your home have you designated as your student's workstation? Dining table was 36%. Kitchen countertop. Thankfully, no one is letting their kids study on the kitchen countertop. the bedroom slash game room is 32%, and then study and office is 32%. There's also the understanding that not every parent has a situation where they have space in their homes, right? So the creativity to be able to repurpose a space for that, and just trying to keep the kids in their virtual spaces, if you would, so if you can afford to get the laptops, the schools are handing out devices. If you can afford a laptop, get them a headset so they stay in their own heads and not screaming and disturbing, especially when there are multiple kids in the house. So these are some of the things you could do. These are some of the things that we would probably, most of us will end up doing. So that's where we are with the polls at the moment. So we have 36% dining table, 32% bedroom game room, and then studies 32% as well. So Wendy, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's get to your content. And you take it away.
All right, perfect. Hey everybody, thanks again for having me, and let's get right into it so we can go to the next slide. All right, so the topics that we're going to cover today, I'm going to keep it really simple. So I'm going to try to slow it down. I'm from New Orleans. So what, other than the cooking, the other piece of me is I talk really fast, and people say, is that another language? No. So the topics that I'm going to cover today, the first one being is, what will elementary, middle school, high school education look like in the upcoming year? That's the first point. The second is, what changes are possible to make elementary, middle, high school education ideal, and what is it should we be striving for? And the third is, how should a parent be preparing for the upcoming school year? So point number one, what will elementary, middle, high school education look like in the upcoming year? Now, this isn't an ideal school year that we anticipated at all, but we'll get through it. We have to, right? I understand. I have a first grader and I have a kindergartner, pre-K 4 student as well. But let's look back at the past a little bit. I always like to look at the past so that we can better prepare for the future. So typically a student would experience something that during the summertime that we call learning loss. That's typically summer month, which is, what is that? May, part of May, June, July, and a part of August. So, but for us, due to COVID-19, summer month started initially essentially in March. And here's why. No classroom environment engagement, or no classroom engagement for students for 6 months. What that does, that impacts their critical thinking, analytical, and problem solving skills without that class engagement with their peers and their educators. So we've been doing what we call, everyone knows now, is remote learning. To me, remote learning, or what I see remote learning, is more of a cookie cutter approach, and it doesn't address students' learning styles. As was talked about earlier, whether your student needs audio support, visual support, kinesthetic support, the remote learning just doesn't have the ability to provide that kind of support. So COVID's slide is what they're calling it. Statistics are saying that 30 to 40% of students will lose their verbal skills over that time. And 50+% of math skills will be lost due to the cost of COVID, the COVID slide. Now, all students, and I'll say this slow, all students will experience some type of learning loss due to the COVID slide. The problem is that we don't know is how much loss are they going to lose. But how do we do something about that so we're better prepared for the upcoming school year? Because we have no choice but to adjust to the time that we have. But knowing what happens in the past is going to help you strategize and prepare for what's ahead. So what I recommend is that all families do some type of, or have your student do some type of immediate comprehensive assessment. And what is a comprehensive assessment? That assessment assess a student's reading, writing, and math skills. Now, the results from this assessment, what it does is it's a breakdown of a student's strengths and weaknesses and what grade level are they at. And this grade level, what it does is It helps you, and you can contact me. I'll provide my contact information to recommend any comprehensive assessments that you could consider doing for your students. But what these results will do is it helps you and your family better prepare for the upcoming school year. So by now, most of the schools have provided you with the back to school options, and we've been talking about it on this call. One of them being virtual is an option. The other is in person, and the third option is a hybrid. And I tell my families all the time, listen, parents should make the best choice that works best for their kids, and whether it's online or in person, and not the government. So that's something that I stand behind, and I believe that families should make the best decision for that. So the next point is, what changes are possible to make elementary, middle, high school education ideal, and what should we strive for? Well, number one, we should strive for the safety and well-being of our teachers, our students, administrators should be priority. Considering there are already a shortage of teachers, and every attempt that we should make every attempt to make sure that those environment is safe for our teachers. The curriculum, expect that curriculum that's going to be provided by our educators are going to be at grade level material. So if that's why I recommend that all families assess to see if their students have any skill gaps, because being away from the classroom for a prolonged time, it's bound to happen. So once you've identified those gaps, you're able to plan and provide the support of what a student may need. The ultimate goal that you want your student to be for this virtual distant learning hybrid option, whatever that is to be an engaged and independent learner. And earlier was talked about, how are you engaged? Well, you engaged because you see reading as fun. You engage because you see writing and math as fun skills. That allows you to be more independent because you know how you learn, how to approach that, and what's effective for you. These are all the things that you need to know, or students should know, or parents should know, of how to better support your students. So long-term, your goal is to be an engaged, independent learner at grade level. That's the other thing that I would say. Now, the preparedness for the changes for the upcoming school year. I recommend that have a station ready for your students. And I love the fact of the science threefold. That's ideal, so that you can create their space, their area, and they're ready to go every morning. It should have a computer if you're able to have that, a printer, so that they're ready in their stations, hotspot or Wi-Fi if capable of having those things. And the space must be quiet. But we know that, you have 3 different kids, 3 different areas, you have limited space. The one thing that we could do to change that is the headphones that cover the ears, that kind of cut the sound out. So therefore they have their space, they have the headphones, and they have everything that they need. The last thing is making sure, this is a good way to help your teachers out too, making sure all the supplies that they need are in those space, pen, paper, highlighters, colors, whatever it is that they need, have it readily available in those areas of where the student is. That'll be less of them getting up, asking questions, sitting down, so forth and so on. The other point that I would say to prepare for these changes is talk about the limitations that these students are going to experience in the next coming 6 weeks or month or so. Talk about that they're going to be in one place for most of the day. So to make this space their own, I think what was shared earlier is ideal, because they're going to be looking at this place for 5, 6, 7 hours at a time. Take breaks. I always say 25. You do 20 minutes, you break for 5, or 10 minutes, you do 30 minutes, you take 5 to go outside. Learning outside sometimes is very helpful for my students that have learning disabilities. Sitting out on the porch, it allows them to be able to focus, even though parents may feel that that could be distracting. It's actually not for some of my students with learning disabilities. It actually calms them and it resets their mind. So that's always good. And whether you have learning disabilities or not, the 20 to 35 break is still another form of resetting. So take breaks and pace yourself. It's really, 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 really helpful, because you're in the same environment for a really long time. And then the last point that I would share is, how should parents be planning for the upcoming school year? There's no formula. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Do what works best for your family, But here are some tips that can help you plan ahead, strategize to know and understand. And I want to go back to one point of why the assessment is important. If you experienced last semester, whether middle school, just so you know, middle school and transitioning into high school, your students should be able to work in, should be able to read the directions, understand what is expected, and being able to execute. Those should be required in 6th, 7th, and 8th. I also agree with the speaker that said earlier that high school is essential. It is. I think elementary, you're learning how to read, okay? 3rd, 5th, 6th, well, 4th, 5th, and 6th, you're reading to learn. And 6th, 7th, and 8th, you're dealing with the transitional of independence, execution, organizational skills, study skills, etc. And Super Bowl day is 9th grade. Most colleges will look at what you do in 9th and 10th grade and how a student challenge themselves. 11th grade, the cake is baked, it's done. 12th grade is done, it's done. So keep that in mind. 6th, 7th, and 8th, for me, as I encourage my families, that's to help you determine how to support your students. If there's any areas that they're struggling in, this is where you can address those and get them ready to go for Super Bowl day, as I say, is 9th grade. 9th and 10th grade, those are really important years for a student, because 9th grade, you want to build the highest GPA you can, and 10th grade, you want to build on that. 11th and 12th grade, not so much change. So just keep that in mind. So going back to my last point is, how should parents be planning for the upcoming school year? Whatever that is. Learning should be fun. You should make it fun. It should be everyday learning. Life skills is what they call it. They're taking home ec, I believe, out of school, some of them. And I'm like, why? That's where I learned how to cook. Despite the fact I'm from New Orleans, but that's how I actually learned how to cook. But the first is kitchen math, right? That's K through 12. And what is kitchen math? Kitchen math is, are you baking? That's fractions. Baking is also sequencing skills. What happens first, right? Before you bake a cake, you gotta sit the eggs out for a day. Things have to sit out for room temperature. Those are plan ahead things that organizing your thoughts and planning ahead. Also, half a cup, teaspoon, all of those things. Those are math skills. You can do things from this is a good support from K through 12th through 12th grade. Also, math facts. That's something they don't teach a lot in school anymore. Math facts are being able to go through addition, a set of all your additions, a set of all your subtractions, multiplication, and division under a 2 minute. You can make it a game, and they're still learning at the same time. These skills are what I say when it comes to math. The math facts are the only skills my boys particularly should do in their head. My boys start off doing all their math in their head. They want to finish. You can't do algebra. You can't do pre-algebra. You can't do geometry in your head. You can do math facts in your head, but everything else, word problems, are multi-step things, so you got to break those apart. The next is Netflix. Netflix is a great way to teach history, for a student to learn more about something in the past that they didn't know about, and sitting down and talking about a documentary with your family is a great way to learn and fun, and they're allowed to look at TV to do it. They're like, is this real? Yes, it's real. Board games is another fun way to teach our kids skills. Uno is one. It's what I teach my pre-K 4 on color and recognition of numbers. You put the red with the red, you put the twos with the twos, and so forth. Checkers is also another way. That's more of a strategist game. And I always tell, another way I'm telling my age, one of my favorite games was Battleship, right? You can't see the other person, but you have to critically think of where they could have moved that. So Uno, chess, checkers, there are a lot of different things, board games that you can be teaching at home. Connect the Four is another good one. So some of the things that you could be planning by looking at the past school year is reviewing the website or following up with a past teacher, past curriculum from the previous year, right? Working through some of those problems that your student had to kind of get them prepared as they transition into the new year. A couple months ago, I sat with Sue Dyer, which is the board of trustee of HISD, and she recommended that practicing these skills, helping the student as they transition into this new upcoming school year will make things a lot easier as they transition in. So looking at those past report card or progress reports, pre-COVID now. So we're looking at classroom engagement environment of these past report cards, past progress reports, and asking the student, looking at the grades, that's data that you can use to help determine what was helpful, what wasn't helpful for your students, and ask them. You look at those grades and the trending of those grades. Ask your student what subjects were challenging and why were they challenging to them, and listen. That's the thing that I always advise my parents to do. Listen and take the notes when they tell you what was challenging in those subjects. Then the other, what I would do is when they're able to tell you what's wrong with what was challenging with them, and again, review the old problems on a slower scale, walk through those kind of thing. And sometimes my number one thing that my parents always say is, I'm not an educator. I'm not an educator. Well, this is where you want to reach out to a tutor, okay? But when you reach out to a tutor, just not any tutor, you want to make sure, one, that the tutor is trained and an expert in that area. I don't have anything against high school students or college students, but you want your student to master the skill and not band-aid the issue. What does that mean? That means you're just dealing with the issue at hand. But look at the trend, not just past pre-COVID, but look at, was your student always having issues in math in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade? Always remember this, skills are building blocks. So if what they didn't learn in 3rd grade and they're in 6th grade, all of that stuff in the middle is what we call skill gaps. And all it's going to do is get harder as we progress, because the skills are going to keep on and they're going to get more frustrated. You're going to get more frustrated and everybody's going to get frustrated, right? And then now you're dealing with it, is what we call in virtual learning, is why we're seeing the skill gaps. So listen to them, take notes, and seek out some support. Khan Academy, I think, is another one that they have out there that's helpful. Utilize the free resources that you have. But let's say Khan doesn't work. Don't stop at Khan. Reach out and find something. Get in a pod and see if you can bring a tutor that can help a couple of the kids, and find something that's affordable to you. As the upcoming year is starting, I'm going to slow read this for my middle school and my high schoolers. You want to make sure, hey, Johnny, hey, Sally, you understand what's expected? Okay, check out the list. No. That's not understanding.
It seems like Wendy's having some connection issues.
If that understanding is learning to understand how to reach out to your teachers for questions. And then also, when and how do you understand when and how the homework is due? How to turn it in, when to turn it in, and take their teacher with any questions and turn their homework in.
Hey, Wendy, sorry to interrupt. I think you're having some.
When and how to follow, when this COVID in March, is follow for my work, and also CC yourself records. So you have data that you did follow with your teacher, that you did ask them, and that you didn't screenshot, that the screen may be telling you, hey, it's turned in, but the teacher is saying, no, I didn't get it. Screenshot it, send it to your teacher, CC yourself. So now you have record and data that you turn your work in on time, so you get full credit for this. No purpose of putting all that work in, and you're not going to get the credit for it. And then parents, follow up with your students about the expectations and make sure that they understand and ask the specific questions. Do you know how to reach out to your teacher? If so, show me. When and how to turn in your assignments, and then making sure that you follow. Even sometimes my parents ask me to have the student to CC them on the email so that the parents are in the loop that way. And that way they're not a helicopter mom, but they're yet and still engaged, and they're building those independent skills. Observe your student do this process. Just observe, provide support. Again, get a tutor with specific skills if they need that. If you see areas that they're frustrated in with math, with writing, etc., provide that support with them so that you have a stress-free relationship. Because what happens is when they get frustrated, the relationship gets contentious, then mom and student any questions, you're welcome to contact me. On this next slide has my email address. Again, if you need any information on any recommendations on a full comprehensive assessment so that you can see how, what results your students need support in, And please, please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for more tips and information. Thanks again, and bye for now.
Thank you very much, Wendy, for that wonderful presentation. One thing I know for a fact in this, since March till now, that's 5 months, or at least before the kid went officially on break, is that homeschooling is not a piece of cake. It's not a
No.
walk in the park. And I remember how, you get chatting with especially with all the stuff happening in the world at the moment, even before now, you start talking with a parent and he says, I'm homeschooling my kids. And you're like, yeah, this is really cool, but, it's easy. I'd like to do it too. I just realized that it's not something you can do while working full time.
Yeah.
You can't even do it while working part time unless you're able to manage your schedule. It's a full-time job, and it's in and of itself. There's something that Elvira posted out in the chat where she said, keep an eye on your kids. Don't hover over them throughout, but just make sure that you're paying attention to what they're doing. In our case, in our own situation, we made sure that the spaces they're going to be walking in is not in their bedrooms. No, it's going to be in a common area where you can easily peek over their shoulders and see what they're doing. You can listen into the conversations that are happening. So that again is just to help keep a tab on them, make sure that someone is providing some guidance, right? So we thank you very much again, Wendy, and we put out a poll that asked the question: are you concerned about the quality of your child's education this school year? And overwhelmingly, 84% said yes. And it's a very valid concern. And this is why we're all on this call, to kind of get tools and skills on how we can address this concern and make sure that we bridge the gap where we can. Because it's a new experience for majority of us. And the fact that a lot of us work full time and now most schools are going to do virtual, we're not sure what we're going to do with our kids while we're at work. And we don't all have the luxury of working from home, especially those on the front lines. So this is a big concern about the quality that the kids are going to have at this time. So our final speaker will be Amanda. While she gets ready to present, I will launch another poll. So please, as always, go in and provide some response. And again, continue to put out your questions. We'll give a proper treatment when we're done with all the presentations. Thank you. So Amanda, let's take it away.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm just blown away by all of the advice from the educators. As a mom, that was very helpful. So I'm very grateful for this panel. And I'm going to keep it somewhat brief because I'm not an educator, I'm a mom. But as a mom with two young boys, age 4 and 7, I can say that the past few months have been very hectic, chaotic, frustrating at times. However, I've also learned a lot about this experience that has allowed me to stay more peaceful and to be able to use those tools for the rest of my life, but also to share with other parents. So, if we look at reality, we had little warning about being quarantined. And we've all said, most parents have a job, they go to work, some own businesses. And even if you were a stay-at-home parent, becoming a homeschool teacher was most likely not on your resume. I know for me, it definitely wasn't. I run a business from home and I used to go in several meetings a day. So to suddenly transition to being in charge of my children's homeschooling, along with everything else I was doing, was pretty stressful and inconvenient, to say the least. And yeah, time is very daunting. So the following tips that I'm going to share is just things that I researched and I put in place. Yes, if we can go to the first slide. Okay, basically these are the three topics that I'm going to address today. But the first is to manage your own anxiety and physical health as a parent. So there's a ton of stress now put on us as parents to get it all done, to be a homeschool teacher, to still work, be a parent, a wife, or a husband. And the best thing to remember, and one of the other speakers had mentioned it before, and you know, we all know we're all going through this. We're all going through this together throughout the US. The rest of the country has gone through it. So you're not alone, and we will get through it. Someone else, I think the same person mentioned, children can pick up on our emotions. So if we're hypertension, depressed, angry, our children are going to feel it as well. And right now, depression, anxiety, abuse, suicide, drug use, and overdose has increased in the United States. And a study was done in China where researchers examined close to 2,000 elementary grade students to assess their mental health after being the school shut down. And the study, which was published in April of this year, discovered that about 1 in 5 children experience symptoms of depression and anxiety after being out of school. So to take away, the tips are to really just for you as a parent to stay positive, to look at some of the positive aspects about staying home with your children, how you'll never get this time back. Like, you know, you can say that they're part of history. In 2020, we all had to stay home and be homeschooled, and something we never had, would have imagined. I would also say turn off the news when your children are around. It can be very scary and unsettling, even for adults. So definitely, you know, with children around, turn off the news and take a break and a breather. Even shutting your eyes and concentrating on your breath can recenter you, even for a couple minutes, if that's all the time that you have. And praise your children when they're behaving well to encourage the positive mentality. And lastly, make sure you're scheduling time for yourself to decompress, to exercise, do things that make you happy. And I know it can be very challenging. I'm trying to deal with it on a daily basis. And don't beat yourself up if you don't finish everything. We do have this tendency to compare either to other people or to this idea of what we think it should look like. And that can lead to comparison and feeling bad and guilty. So try not to do that. All right, the second thing that I wanted to go into is, and this is for the children, to incorporate interest-led learning alongside their traditional academics and their regular schoolwork. And what that means is what it sounds like. It's letting a child's interests lead the learning process. So parents can take note of what their child is curious about, what they enjoy doing, and what they're naturally drawn to. And the parents can help them foster that interest. And it would vary from child to child, family to family. But what that looks like, for example, is a parent, you could add more astronomical studies, nighttime walks for a child who's fascinated by planets and space. Or you could add in field trips to local nature centers or parks, state parks for children who become interested in reptiles or insects. Or for a child who's interested in soccer, you could help him learn geography by plotting team locations together on a world map to help with geography. So interest-led learning is a creative way to tune into your child's passion and what they're curious about, which is really important right now because our children have been kept away from potential opportunities they might have had to explore out in the community or in field trips. So we want to make sure that their imagination is still thriving and their inquisitiveness. And it's also a bonding experience to share the discovery of your child's passions. You know, I know my sons are interested in lizards and reptiles, and right now, of course, there are a lot of lizards outside. So it's very convenient that we can, you know, even just look in our backyard for some learning tools and activities. And then lastly, schedule fun and therapeutic activities. Kids feel good when they have something to look forward to, of course. So a lot of the things that you used to be able to do are probably not available right now because of social distancing, but you can still have fun. You could tell your kids that you're ordering pizza and you're going to have a pajama party and watch a special movie, or you can plan to go on a hike and take some photos, and just scheduling activities and having them in your calendar to look forward to is something that can boost the morale and the spirits of the whole family. Also, doing therapeutic activities like art, dance, cooking that was mentioned a few times, gardening, it's been proven to have calming effects. And then there's also a lot of everyday learning in these activities. And lastly, socialization is extremely important for children. And of course, being quarantined and not being at school, it's lacking right now. Teens, they make deep emotional connections with friends, and it's been very hard for them to be secluded. But you can encourage them to still continue using appropriate social media to bond with their friends and peers, but obviously to take breaks. Don't let them stay on for hours. And then also, if they have any bigger worries, to speak with you as the parent rather than trying to, go into the abyss of the internet or social media. Younger children, their friendships might be a little less emotionally intense than teenagers, but they still do miss the company of their friends during this period of isolation. I know my boys, they really miss their buddies, and we had to skip a trip to California to see their cousins. So what we've done is weekly supervised FaceTime or Skype calls with their friends and families. It's just important for them to see familiar faces of their young comrades and family. And another fun thing children can do is they can write letters or draw cards and send photographs to friends and family, either through the mail or digitally. We've done that, and that's great for practicing handwriting and storytelling. And the other important thing to make sure that the kids are getting some physical activities. So you can be creative about the activities when you're confined from home. We've done everything from obstacle courses, mini boot camps in the backyard. Some people have those video games that you can do, dancing, fitness, boxing. And then there's a lot of online kid-friendly classes, neighborhood, studios are posting things online. You can find stuff on YouTube. But this is just what I have learned over the past 5 months. It's definitely been a learning experience, and going into the fall, it's going to be challenging, but just to remember to stay positive. I think this panel was incredible. I've learned so much, and I've gotten some tips that I hadn't even thought of, so I really appreciate it. And please let me know if there's anything that I can help you with as a mom in the community. I have a network of moms all throughout Houston who, we're here to support each other. So please don't hesitate to reach out. You can see my Instagram, my Facebook, my email. Yeah, I would love to be of support if I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for that wonderful presentation as well. So it's a lot of information, a lot of actionable information that for most of us who didn't know before, we have something new. For those of us who had some knowledge, this is extra information, and you can apply to your add to your toolkit in readiness as you get ready for what lies ahead. So we're going to transition shortly into our Q&A session. Please keep the questions coming in, and we would have give people an opportunity even to raise a hand and ask questions to the panelists directly. But before we do that, I'd like to provide some update on the last poll that we put out there. This is, how do you plan to keep you and your child or your students' mental health in check? And this is a very good question that a lot of us may not have considered prior to this session. But the fact that these kids have been holed up at home for going to 6 months, and that would even continue beyond this, and not interacting with their friends and expressing, kids are confused as in why can't I give the hugs that I typically give, or touch and go to Johnny's house and run around and swim in the pool. And parents are getting exhausted about providing answers, and it's frustrating to everyone involved. So this is a question that we may not have considered, but it's good to see the feedback that we're getting. So 21% is asking, what plan are you talking about? You know, how do you plan for this, right? And then a huge number, which is not surprising, is saying they're going to pray. They're going to pray that God gives them grace to deal with give them the mental fortitude to manage, and the grace to manage this and navigate this properly. And then 16% are saying they're going to meditate, which is also good. And then counseling is important. Whether it's a parent providing the counsel, getting arming yourself with some information on how to properly ask questions that would provide the response and open up, see what your kid is thinking. Because one of the things we take for granted is what's going in our children's mind and in their heads, what they're dealing with in their head. You know, it's not only adults that are bogged down with all this concerns. The kids too, they have a lot of questions. So as parents, I want to encourage us to be open to the questions as they come, and don't be frustrated. Okay. So right now we're going to switch into our Q&A session. So we had a few questions that were posted earlier. I'm going to read it out, and I'll invite any member of the panel to offer a response accordingly. For some of them already have some answers, so I'm going to provide an answer if it's already been provided, and then I'll open it up to the panel to pitch in as well.
Can I just wanted to add one thing that I've been hearing, and I want to say, in this time, we got to look for the silver lining in this. And the huge silver lining for this time of homeschooling is that you can fill the gaps. As Wendy was saying, you can fill the gaps in their learning. So when you find out, like I have my parents take the Saxon assessment. They don't use Saxon often, but it's a really good assessment for math as to what they don't know. And it's a great time then that you can fill those gaps. And I know your teacher, you could email your teacher, ask your teacher. They're all about learning, the kid learning. They're not happy if there are kids who have gaps. And if you want to work specifically in a certain area, especially math or language arts, they're going to work with you. And so I just want to say, look for that silver lining. And the second thing I was going to say is, if your kids have trouble transitioning subjects, you can have them take a day. If the work can be handed in progressively through the week, or they have the week's work presented to them, have them do all their history on one day. Have them do all their science on one day. Have them do, if you lose them in the transition, have them block it like that. And I just wanted to throw those out as I saw some of the questions and comments come up.
Thank you very much, Elvira. And again, another important point is, let's look beyond the frustration and embrace the opportunity that this presents, that we're spending this amount of time with our kids, where typically when you're at work, they're out in school from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. to whenever you get back from work. But now you're having to spend many hours of with the kids. Yeah, so you're beginning to notice some things that need some extra work on. So it's challenging nonetheless, but it also presents, like Elvira mentioned, a silver lining for me to begin to fix some of those deficits that they have, whether in their education or even in their character, right? And start remolding these kids again and put them on the right path. as I'm sure a lot of parents have embraced in this period.
And just may I add too, it's nothing to be ashamed of or anything you failed about. It's something you did not know.
Hmm.
So knowing the information as you get ready to transition is going to prepare you. No need to be embarrassed. I'm a bad parent. You're not. Just fix the problem, because the kid will be more engaged and happy at the end of the day too, and it minimizes the frustration and stress in the household. So I had to add that.
Good. And the fact that you even caught that they have a deficit is a kudos to you for being observant, right? That's something you noticed, which is a great thing. So Q&A. The first question that came through was, from a working mom and a working dad's perspective, how do I ensure my kids are focused on their schoolwork virtually while I'm at work? Who wants to take that? Paula started to respond, says it all depends. Maybe have a check-in time scheduled in your day where your children check in with you to let you know their progress throughout the day. And like you very well said, it depends on the age. You wouldn't be leaving 6-year-olds alone at home. At least I wouldn't recommend that. Those teenagers maybe, but anyone younger than that. Yes, Elvira, go ahead.
Yeah, because you can, even at work, I mean, you have a cell phone, you can have them, a lot of times you can access what they're doing on the computer, or they can tell you, they can screenshot what they're doing. It's just touching base with them and making sure, what are you doing? Let me see the work. Can you FaceTime and show me your work and what's happening? And also you have that the flexibility of schooling, not in the set time of 9 to 3. You have flexibility that way. And I do
Very
want to
good.
say, if you're a working parent, you can homeschool successfully. I've done this for 23 years, and I've seen a lot, and I have kids who have working parents who've gotten into Stanford. So it's not,
Impossible.
it's not impossible, and it's all about making it work. And I'm always glad to help if you have specific questions.
Thank you very much. The other question is, so when you have little ones going to kindergarten and learning from home who need supervision, how do I create a schedule that allows both work and school? I think Elvira had kind of touched upon this when she presented. So if whoever wants to go at this can go, but Paula did make a good contribution as well. I said putting schedules next to each other and carving out time. Just like you do when you're trying to schedule a meeting with at work, you have to see who's available when, trying to find a time that works for everybody. And one thing Evra also mentioned is the fact that it's not a 8 to 5, 8 to 3. It doesn't have to be 8 to 3. It could be whatever works for that family, whatever works around your own schedule. I think that's very important. But go ahead, Wendy. I saw you were trying to unmute.
I would say keep in mind that the little ones cannot sit on the computer longer than 30 minutes. The other thing is you need to make sure that they have covering over their ears so they're not distracted by the noise. And remember, kindergarten through 3rd grade, they're learning how to read. So they need to, that's why when you go into a kindergarten class, there's so many colors and pictures and visuals and audios and touch things, manipulators, etc. They need those things as a support. So try to incorporate those in their learning. Get those from a teacher store and try to allow it to be as exploring as possible. They'll need a lot of breaks. So those schedules are gonna, for the little ones, really need to be very, 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 very flexible. So you're just gonna have to give them things and breaks, and they're gonna need a lot of more supervision too than the bigger kids as well. So just keep in mind that they're not gonna be able to sit on a computer for longer than 30 minutes. So just keep that in mind.
I think that the chances are very high that most of us have that expectation of our kids, that they can stay attentive in front of a screen. I mean, when watching a TV, yes. When watching cartoons, that's for the whole day they can. But when you're actively engaging your brain, it's a tough ask to expect them to be attentive for a whole hour, right? So that's setting the right expectation, I think, helps you not to be super frustrated with the progress you're making.
Also, can I say that there are all kinds of fun, well, there's something I know they're online, but there's something called Learning Ally, and that actually is a whole bunch of books that are actually read aloud to the kids, and actually even highlights as it's reading. So it's kind of a nice when the kids, when you need a break or you're working with one of your other kids. There are also some fun online educational sites like Math Seeds, Reading Eggs. And I don't know whether I put those in my resources, but again, if you email me, I have a bunch that are educational break time and on really rewards. My kids love the reward. My students, well, if you do this, then you get to play 15 minutes on Math Eggs. They love it. And, or, you know, everyone's going to listen to this book being read.
Very well, thank you. Another question that was put out here is, how do you, I think you kind of started answering that. How do you access the textbooks used at the schools? Are these better than the supplements mentioned earlier? I think for those who are experienced in who work in that space, please go ahead and answer.
Yeah, I can answer that question. For my district, I know that all of the books are online. We have online textbooks. So, hey, hello again. So yeah, the online textbooks are all available for students in my district, and I'm sure that most districts do have online textbooks. If not, then Half Price Bookstore is a good tool to use if you want to get a physical copy of a textbook.
Okay, thank you, Paula.
No problem. Oh, and then also there was another question about, I got a Deaconess Abby, shout out to her, sent about screen time. The recommendation by American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization. So we can maybe get that out to everybody of the recommended screen time for children. And this was from 18 months all the way to age 13. So we can get that out maybe.
If you don't mind posting that out in the chat, and then we can collate all that information and share
Awesome.
to the people.
I will do that. Thank you so much, Deaconess Abby.
There was a question here about how can parents stay organized? How can the parents stay organized? Now, there's no context whether this is a working parent or what they do, but I think from a general, if you can speak to it from a general perspective, that would be helpful.
Yeah, from a general perspective, if you you make a schedule, you can stay organized if you plan out. My homeschool students, they have a weekly plan. What the subjects are there, what do they have to complete by the end of the week? In that, and then the mothers or whatever have like that sample colored daily whatever that had on it, you know, what the student has to do that week. For you, you know, it's like I have a calendar, I keep things in, I have lists, and we make a schedule for the day. So I think it's planning, thinking ahead, planning and preparing are just so key to being successful.
Important, very good.
And if I could just piggyback on what Ms. Elvira said, also making sure that you practice it. So maybe try to practice before, you know, just like an athlete, when you prepare for something, you're better ready to do it. So school hasn't started for many. Maybe practice that schedule now while you're at home before you get started with the school year, and that might help you as well.
Thank you.
I would add to that is when you pick that schedule out, make sure it's a collaborative effort with the students as well, because the parents may have a thought in their mind to say, this is the way the schedule is going to work, and then shove it down the kid and say, we're going to do this. And then they don't do that. And then there's tension. So allow it to be collaborative. And to start with what that looks like is let's lay all the expectations down for my first grader of what the teacher's expecting. Do they understand that? Do they know how to do that? And what do they believe that they can commit to? When they verbalize that to you, you take notes and you create something called a contract. So what I hear you saying is that you're willing to do this, this, and this. Is that what I hear you saying? Yes. We put that in a contract, they sign that contract, and we put that contract on the wall. These are the expectations of what you've committed to, and these are the rewards to this contract that you've committed to. And this is what you get if you commit to this contract. So there's no more nagging. There's no more, you said this is what you're gonna do. Nope, these are the rules that we're gonna follow. So there's a little tidbit.
Very good.
I love that. That was good.
One of an experience that I had with my son was, we provided access to these tools, and himself and his sister would go in and do stuff, and we realized he wasn't doing very much, not as well as his sister, and we were getting flustered about the whole thing and asked him, what's going on, and he said, "Hey, that thing is boring. It's very boring. I can't wrap my head around it because I get."
Right.
Like it's killing me. So we had to listen to that and create an alternative for him that would, empower him. And I think that's one thing as parents that we need to do more often is that collaboration that Wendy mentioned. Regardless of the age, yes, you have the veto power to say this is what we're going to do at the end of the day if it's some crazy stuff they're trying to push down, the agendas, but give them the sense that they're involved in the decision making. That's helpful.
That's friction. And then in color code too. So that was the other thing. So that way parents can stay organized of what kid it belongs to, what agreement that they committed to based on the color. Johnny's all blue, Sally's all red, pink. I'm making up names, but at least so they don't feel like they're crazy. Because the point is, engage independent learners what you want. And the way to do that is they have to be engaged in the process and have some input into it, just like anyone else.
Yeah, there was a question. Go ahead, Wendy. Elvira, before you go, there was someone who was asking about a schedule. I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, if you just go on that handout, go up a little bit. There's a schedule. No, the other way. Sorry.
Oh, the other way.
No,
Okay.
the other way. I'm sorry. There's a sample schedule.
There you go. Okay.
That has it. It just gives you an idea that you can schedule out times. And it's kind of fun if the kids, it means as a parent, you might have to make lunches now at a certain time or make breakfast, but then the kids can actually have input. Hey, what do we want? We can make a schedule as to what we're going to eat for lunch and breakfast. And maybe we'll do a little, as we've said, talking about math and sequencing and whatever while we're doing it. It's all good skills.
Very, very important. Again, this is a template, right? It's
just an
customize
example.
it. Yeah, customize it how it fits your situation.
Yeah, how you could do it.
Yeah, and we will be sharing all this this very content-rich presentation that we've given. Just if you don't mind putting out your email in the chat, you can send it to me privately or reach out to the church administrator, or most of you are familiar with her. We'll make sure that we get these documents right into your, make it accessible to you. The other thing, we're recording this session, so there will be, playback is feasible once we're all done. There was a question about learning pods and how effective they are. Who wants to take that? And in the process, explain exactly what learning pods are.
Okay, so for my brief, if I'm not mistaken, maybe one of the panelists can correct me. Learning pods are where you have a group of students and then you have a teacher that comes in and teaches that group of students. Am I correct? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I don't know. I've never heard the word.
So I actually had to look it up. I looked it up and I think that's right, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
so
that's we're doing a couple of those pods at Huntington. Yes.
Okay. So yeah. So maybe you can, because my answer to that question was
the pros and cons of that.
Okay. No, my answer to that question, particularly because they wanted to know if it was effective. And I said, as long as you have an instructor where the kids are responding to that person well, and that person is someone that knows the content, like Miss Wendy was saying earlier, about making sure that it's just not any type of tutor. They have to be a master at what they're teaching the children. I don't see how it could be a bad thing. But Miss Wendy, I would love to hear what you have to say about it since you're familiar with it.
Couple things with the districts that frustrate me, particularly the same. I know with HISD, they can have 4 or 5 schools within a 5-6 mile radius, and all the elementary first graders and second graders do something all different. That's where one could be a problem. So you want to make sure that all the kids are on the same, just doing the same work. That could be helpful. Typically, I think the pods are helpful. So a lot of the contingents of what the parents are receiving with working with the kids is just like, I can't get my kid to sit down. I can't get my kids. Well, the pods are effective for that because typically they listen to other, even though the parents say the exact same thing, but sometimes if they hear from someone else, they're able to get through the curriculum. The only cons that we have, we did assessments with the pods that we're working on, the groups of first graders. We did see discrepancy in level of where they were and gaps. So that was concerning, but what we did was just adjusted those kids in areas where they were so they can kind of learn off of each other. So one student may be operating here, another student may be operating there. So to put them in a group, that could be challenging because one student may need more help than the other one. So section them off with similar learning abilities would be helpful too, to kind of help you flow through the curriculum quicker, because otherwise you'll find yourself just helping one student more or 2 students more than the others, and then your higher performing students get frustrated because no one's showing them any attention because they're already done with it, they're ready to move on to something else. So really understanding all their learning styles, I think that was talked about earlier, so that you can provide that support to them so they're not bored and they don't check out and they're not engaged. But to do that, you got to be experienced to know how to identify learning styles and how to provide that support to them.
I would just like to say too that for working parents, those pods could be very helpful to be able to spread the responsibility. And if you think if you're the parent and you're given that assignment, you are going to teach your child. You could teach 3 children that. It doesn't mean you have to have a PhD in that. So I would say, I think it's helpful if they all have the kind of same assignment. Also, I often with groups of kids have the ones who understand it explain it to the kids who don't. And then, so you have that while I'm working with somebody else. And that collaborative, often a kid can explain it to another kid better than I can sometimes. So I think what I want to say about this is that you've got to do something that makes it doable for you as a parent. If that's going to help you be able to do this, educating at this time, then do it, because that could help. I mean, yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
No, I just wanted to say, so to answer the question, the learning pods are parents that get together and bring their children together in one group?
Well, for
No.
mine, yeah.
Okay.
In my case, because what else is there at this point? At least here in California, there's nothing else at this point.
I know that some daycares, if you would, some educational organizations are creating learning spaces for parents that are going to be engaged with work. So they take their kids up there and drop them off and have them log into whatever the ISD is providing, and then just have someone provide some supervision while the kids are in that space with other kids. So maybe that could be
Like a
what that,
proctor.
like a proctor, exactly. So like the normal daycares where you drop off your kids, they're now providing some extra space for parents who are stuck with kids that can be by themselves, just to provide make sure there's proper guidance. There was a question here about if you are homeschooling, what is the best resource to do an assessment for your child for pre-K level? I'll let the panelists answer, but before they do, here is my opinion. I do not believe a child who is at pre-K needs to be going through any kind of assessment. You know, I had this not argument, but we had this discussion with my wife, and I said, look, as far as I'm concerned, any child that is under 6 years old shouldn't be messing with any of these things. And it seems like Elvira says even all the way up to high school, right? These assessments are not as meaningful so we shouldn't we shouldn't put a lot of weight on these things. We should let kids be kids and experience the fun of being a child, but provide some guidance, right, to them. That's how I interpret that's my
I don't want to
extraction.
say that assessments aren't good, because they are, absolutely. But at that age, kids, kids develop at different stages. They develop at different rates. It's like a tadpole. You can poke a tadpole, but it can't jump until it grows legs. And sometimes, like for reading, even math skills, and boys and girls differ. I don't think, even if I have students under me who can't read and till they're 6 or 7, it's okay, because then all of a sudden they get it. You can tell they don't get it up to that point, but they will. And so the younger ages, I agree, at pre-K, I wouldn't assess them. You know, you do counting with them, you can do sight words and stuff, but you don't make it a big deal if they don't know it or don't catch it, because they might not be developmentally ready yet. But as far as others assessment, like I recommended the Saxon math assessment, and I think Wendy probably has some great assessments for other kids that might identify holes that you would now have this great opportunity to fill.
Very good. Well, that brings us to the last of the questions that has been shared. If there are any other questions for the attendees, especially even within the panelists, because you're a panelist doesn't mean you don't have your own questions and you don't have things that you'd like answered, right? So let's take advantage of the richness in the panel and ask questions. Okay. In the meantime, so go ahead.
I just wanted to piggyback on the kindergarten statement just for a second, because I have a pre-K 3. So the assessment, I agree, it's not needed that early. Formation, recognition, and association is pretty much what you're working on. But I will say by age 3, your kids should be speaking or should know 20,000 words. So by the time they're 3, your kids should be able to articulate and be able to tell you what they need, how they feel, etc. If they're saying 1-letter words, 2-letter words, reading to them out loud. So the way you're communicating to them, the way they're responding to you is as parents. So making sure you're really buffing up those vocabulary words. Explore learning. By 6th grade or 6 years old, they should be reading by that time. Some of them get there early, but by 6 years, everybody should be pretty much on that same page. So yeah, but if you want to do the assessment, all it's going to do is inform you, but it's not needed that early on. So I agree.
Thank you. Just a quick time check. We are 6 minutes away from noon Central Time. It's been a very insightful hour and 50 minutes, at least for me. I would be bold to say the same for everyone else. Wendy, I'm gonna have you speak to some of the flyers that you had shared. But in the meantime, I would also ask Pastor Caller to please raise your hand, because I see there are 2 callers in the chat. I don't know which one you are. So if you don't mind raising your hand, then I would promote you to a panelist so you can close us out. So Wendy, I'm going to share my screen again and have you speak to some of the flyers that you had provided, if that's okay. You are mute.
Oh, thank you. So these flyers, this one's this is Huntington Study Hall. So we're offering an opportunity for parents to drop their kids off here for a period of time to get that support of the work that they're doing in school. Bring their computer in, Wi-Fi is there. So there is a certified teacher there to work through the curriculum and help the students get through this. So this is, Huntington is an accredited organization. So we're accredited by Western Association Schools and Colleges. So we can operate as a school. So we're not just kind of funneling through this thing. We talk with our educators, so we're able to communicate with the teachers, the schools at the teacher, the teachers at the school, to see what's expected, what's going to be covered, any additional support that we have to kind of help guide the families through there. So Huntington Study Hall is one way that we can support. We do have those in center, so those are in person, and we do have online virtual study hall as well. They can help the students through things that they're working on at school too.
Okay, and then the next one.
And the next thing I am so excited about, if you can hear my voice, this is called College GPS. So College GPS is simply a guidance
Sorry,
event.
let me, my goodness.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, let me figure this out. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Let's see if it works this time. Come on. There you go. Okay.
Oh, there it is. So College GPS is a guidance for parents and students at college, just a guide through college admission. So what we've done is we're bringing the colleges to you. One thing we hear about our families is that we can't get in control of the admissions. Where are they? Blah, 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 blah. We love this event is because these reps are going to be on here and tell you exactly what you need to do through the process. How do you apply? A lot of communication out there about test optional. What does that mean? All that other good stuff. Test optional does not mean don't submit an essay. It's a lot of things. Don't submit an ACT or SAT score. So there's a lot of behind the scenes that happens. These admission officers are going to be on board to walk through it. What are they going to be looking for in that application process due to COVID? The other thing is this is great for middle schoolers to kind of get an idea so they can start preparing so 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. You don't have to know which college. It's information. It helps you just understand how to plan for college admissions, what they're looking for. And the one thing I would share with you is that college admission officers spend 3 full minutes reviewing a college application, 3 full minutes, because they have so many to go through. So they're going to look and decide whether you're going to go from pile A to pile B in 3 minutes. So you want to make sure that your application process is solid and tight, and these representatives will be on to tell you exactly what it is that you need to do and how you need to get there. So private schools, in-state, out-of-state, and specialty schools and schools down south. And it's free. You register online, so that's a good thing.
Thank you very much, Wendy. And like we mentioned, if we haven't mentioned, just to reiterate, all these materials will be made available. So you have information presented at the tip of your fingers, if you would. Thank you very much, Paula, Elvira, Wendy, and Amanda, for your selflessness, providing time to share with from your wealth of knowledge. I have, obviously not all the fears or anxiety or concerns will completely go away, but what you guys have done is equipped us with information. Now we need to go in and begin to apply, like I mentioned at the beginning, and make the most out of what you've presented. At this time, I'd like to invite our dear Pastor Caller, who is the pastor of Dominion International Center Spring, to close out this webinar.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Your video should be working now, sir. If you
Okay.
mind checking.
All right, good. Hello, can you all hear me? First and foremost, I want to say a very big thank you to all the panelists. I really learned a lot, and I really appreciate you coming on board and coming around here to just be a blessing to us. And it's just been blessed. I've been blessed. It's just been such a phenomenal 2-hour session. I believe everyone here did as well too. And I'm very excited to take all that has been said here and practice these things. And I was talking to my wife and formulating things as you were talking about them. So I was really, really blessed, and I appreciate that. To all who joined, this is new. We're all in new and uncharted waters, and I so believe we're going to get through this, right? This is one, like they said at the beginning, that will go into the books. We would tell stories about moments like this, and I believe we're going to come out better. We will win at this. There's no one person who's an expert, and I can only say that we will get better. We only get better at something that we start and we remain consistent at. So let's be brave. Let's step out into growth that will come from the children and from all of us, even through this process. It's new, but we all practice something to become good at what we are today. One thing that occurred to me, I've not shared it with the rest of the leaders of this panel, but I think a great idea is and I'm thinking about is probably set up a group within the church, and maybe outside open to beyond the church itself, a group where we can learn from each other. Whereas we go through these things, when we fall, we can have someone to lean on or ask questions, and maybe we can invite some of the panelists into that and just kind of throw some questions out. Maybe a group a WhatsApp, something that would allow us to just kind of go through the lessons learned, what's working for you and your family, how, some things we didn't anticipate that was not talked about here that might show up during the process of making all those things work as we crawl towards walking and running, so we can all equip and sharpen each other, like the scripture says, and be better and come out better, stronger, so that our kids will grow from this, our kids will grow from this, and just have a support group. When you're having those moments when you want to pull your hair out, having a support group to go through those times, I think would be great. So that's one thing I would really encourage the leadership of this whole seminar from DIC point of view to put together, and I think would be really beneficial to all of us. At least for me, I believe it would be. Once again, thanks to everyone who joined and the panelists, and I believe that this is just the beginning. I appreciate the engagement. It's just the beginning, and we're going to get through this, and we're going to win at this, right? We'll probably bring out better students and greater students at the end of this, and that's the joy of every parent, right? So with that being said, thank you for your time today, everybody. If you just mind, I just want to have a word of prayer just for a few seconds here. Father, Lord, I thank you for this moment. Thank you for knowledge that you have shared through your children here today, that have gifted us with this opportunity to go out and take the bull by the horn and run towards this and be courageous at what we're learning and working towards. And I'm asking you, Father, Lord, that you would give every one of us that boldness to take the step, the courage to run with us, the wisdom to make the right decisions at the critical moments. And Lord God, we pray for retentive memory for our children, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, that they would assimilate well, they would adjust well to this new process, and that they would all come out better. And Lord, not because we know it all or not because we're perfect at it, but we're learning. And I'm asking you, Lord, that you crown every effort with success, even as we put our hands on the plow and run towards to winning the prize. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to all the attendees for sticking with us for the past 2 hours plus on a Saturday. With all the long list of chores that we need to do. So this just shows how much you value good information and knowledge and learning. Again, a quick reminder, all the panelists have shared their social media handles. Please go ahead and follow them on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and be one of the first to receive the new nuggets that the nuggets that will be pushing out and grow in your capacity in these topics. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Elvira. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Amanda. And thank you especially to Pastor Shen for even, dreaming up this concept, or even thinking that this was something important to do and going through the process of putting it together. We want to appreciate you for creating this opportunity for us to be blessed by this wonderful panelists. For the attendees, have a wonderful week ahead, and all the information shared you will be receiving in your email, so look out for that. And if you don't get it, reach out to Omo. She will take care of you. So with that, I'd like to we sign off on that note, and enjoy the rest of your weekend, and God bless every one of us. Bye, guys. How do I say all this?